Hey, I'm Giancarlo Stan, and you're on 24/7 Miami.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and you're on 24/7 Miami.
It's okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Few Show. So, here we are in segment 3. This one is Captain Vogie versus Bruce in an F5 match. You're asking yourself, what is a F5 match? Hey guys, what is the F5 match?
Fast Life Fanatic Face-Off!
Yeah, that's right. So, we will be going head-to-head in this F5 match. I will ask questions to Bruce that no one dares to ask. And Bruce will need to have an answer. If you know referee Bruce, this interview will blow your mind. And if you don't know Bruce, the referee, you are in for a treat. Let's go to the tail of the tape. So, I am Captain Bogey, standing at 6 feet tall, weighing in at amazing. Hailing from New York City / Miami.
We want the weight.
The weight? Wait for it. Wrestling promotion, The Few Show. My finishing move is the F5 Gotcha. And I have been quoted as saying, 2 wrongs don't make a right, but 4 rights will get you dizzy.
Give me a hell yeah!
Hell yeah! All right, so, and my opponent, his name, Bruce. His nickname is the Ref of Refs. Yeah. His resume, he is announcer / referee. So we're going to hear a little bit about that. Height and weight, he put down on his application, none of your business. So Bruce has met and brushed shoulders with the following. So let me go through this little resume that he has. And this is only part 1 of these names in history. Kevin Sullivan, referee Earl Hebner, Christian, Gangrel, Samoa Joe, Wes Briscoe, Gerald Briscoe, Rose Mendez, Barry Windham, Two Cold Scorpio, Bill Watts, The Midnight Express, MVP, Carlito, Earthquake, The Barbarian, Teddy Long, Haku, Bobby Lashley, Rocky Johnson, Ricky Santana, Fit Finlay, Wade Barrett, Bray Wyatt. I'm going to have to hold on there. I got to catch my breath. I'll tell you the rest later on, guys. Whew. All right. So, Bruce, how are you, brother? How you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Let me go ahead and show you guys a little something that he brought. I don't know if the cameras can catch this. This belt right here is beautiful. If you can lift this up, you'd probably get some 26-inch pythons like Hulk Hogan in a few weeks. This thing is very, very heavy.
Yeah.
So, just give us a quick little history on this.
Little history on this belt is actually this belt was in Iraq. There were soldiers who would wrestle, and when they weren't under siege and fire, they would wrestle for entertainment. And unfortunately, when the soldier came home, he sold me the belt simply because a lot of his buddies that were wrestling when they would have fun over there died.
Wow.
And he didn't want the memory of the belt related to them, so he sold it to me. Now, I've also said that we should get Jose at X Wrestling to use this as the X Championship.
All right.
So I'm hoping we can get there.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. So, let's start off the Few Fast 5 Fanatic Face-Off. Yeah. So, Bruce, how long have you been a wrestling fan, and which was your first experience watching wrestling?
Okay, my first experience wrestling is I was probably about 10 years old, and back then wrestling was in black and white, and a lot of times,
Really?
and
Like your shirt?
Yeah, just like that.
Oh my
and,
God!
Black and white TV for black and white stripes. But wrestling was great then because this was championship wrestling from Florida. Eddie Graham, Gordon Soley, the great Malenko, Scarpa, many of the names. And Joe Scarpa eventually became Chief Jay Strongbow at the WWF. But back then, you have to understand there weren't all the sports teams that we have: basketball, hockey, and things that we have today. So when wrestling came on, that was it. Everybody watched it. A lot of people that said they weren't fans watched it, but that's how I became a fan. I was probably 10 years old.
Wow. Okay. So, how did you get involved in wrestling?
Okay, mine was an interesting twist because, like anyone else, I became a wrestling fan. But I also found out that I started taking pictures, and I developed my own pictures in
Cool.
darkroom. And I found out that I could sell them. I could make them for 13 cents. This is black and white, folks.
Nice.
I sell them for 50 cents to the wrestler. They'd sell them for $1. And they were making more money than they were wrestling selling my pictures.
Wow.
So now I kind of became one of their favorites because I helped them make a lot of extra money. And then I started picking them up at the airport, and one thing led to another. And fortunately, that's how I kind of got my break in, was with photography. Later, I became an announcer and a referee, but that's how I got my jump into the business.
Okay. Well, actually, let's follow up with that. So, when did you actually become a referee? Because, of course, that is what we know Bruce as. So, when did you become a referee, and how did you come to that decision that let me do this and put these black and white stripes on?
Well, mine started off, like I said, probably around 73 or so. You know, I was
Wow.
a timekeeper announcer. And then after becoming an announcer, it was around 1978. Michael Hayes, Freebirds were in town. He was one of the bookers. And I told him I wanted to be a referee. There was two reasons. One is you didn't have to stay all night like you did when you were an announcer. Two, it paid better. And that's one of the things that I found interesting is always wanted to be in the ring with the people because it doesn't get any better than being right in there. And obviously, one of the things was, you know, when I was an announcer, I was cued in on a lot of finishes and stuff. But when you were back then, it was the kayfabe days. Nobody knew. But now, all of a sudden, I'm in there, man. And it's like when you know the finish of a world title match before it happens, stuff, that it's like tremendous. There's always the fan in me. That's never left me. I'm still the fan that I
that
was.
10-year-old is still
It's
always
inside.
rooting. Nice.
Bruce.
Yes. All right. So this is a question that we hit with all our guests. Who are your 5 favorite wrestlers of all time? I know we can all have like 20 or 30, but who would you say you would put up there, and especially with your experience, that you would put up there as your fave 5?
Yeah, some of them will go back a little bit in time.
Please
because
do.
I've been in there for 4 decades in the business.
Wow.
But, you know, Ric Flair, from a point that the guy is
Yeah.
the same guy that he is now, that he was then. He defined the business of everybody, whether they were a wrestling fan or not. If he went in a store, an airport, a bar, a restaurant, everybody in the world knew who Ric Flair was.
Yes.
2, just because of incredible matches, would be Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Wow.
Who
yes.
started here in championship wrestling from Florida.
Dragon.
The matches between Flair and anybody Steamboat worked were classics. Just one of the greatest performers ever. The next I would go with The Rock, and simply because, you know, I knew The Rock when he was a kid because I used to haul his dad around, Rocky Johnson. So this goes back into the 70s, and, you know, I knew The Rock when he was just a little kid this high, like everyone else and the kids that are here today.
Nice.
And, you know, the next gets pretty interesting is, you know, it's... I find Hogan interesting because he changed wrestling from what
Hulk
it is.
Hogan. Yes.
You know, if the business stayed the way it was, it would have went away.
Wow.
It needed a change because people weren't buying into the old stuff that we did.
Yeah.
So it changed, but they needed that bigger than life charisma star.
And he was.
And Hogan provided that physically,
Oh, my goodness.
on TV and the matches. And,
I'm a
you know, he
Hulk
wasn't
maniac.
the greatest wrestler, but if you could see that, like, a guy could pick up Andre the Giant and do what he could do. I mean, Hulkamania to this day is still there, and we're talking 30 years, 20, 30 years
Yes.
ago. And last but not last is, and this was set up by the youngest members of the feud
Yes.
here today, my favorite wrestling ring. And I was playing with this, but they told me put it back, so I will. But last
had to
but
go
not
like this.
least, Andre the Giant.
Wow.
I had the privilege
Yes.
to take Andre the Giant before he spoke English and travel in different places with
Oh, my
him,
goodness.
and kind of be his driver and make sure that he got to the arenas, and you know, and sometimes fly with him and everything. And
Holy
you know, you're
cow.
talking about a guy that drank over 120 beers in Dallas Airport.
That's the
and
history.
so when I traveled with Andre, I drank good, I ate good, and you know, people didn't push me around. As this little skinny kid of you know, about 120
Wow.
pounds. People didn't push me around when I was with the big man, so I enjoyed that.
Awesome. Now, the last question, we're about to wrap this up. What is your most what is the most memorable experience that you've had in your whole refereeing career? What would you say that would be?
I would say a match that was at the War Memorial Auditorium in Fort Lauderdale where I took a bad bump and I hit the steel cage post of the door, and my head actually split for real on a hard way. And when I went down for the count, I went for the 1, the 2, and the 3. Flair saw blood. It looked like it was pouring out of my ear, and he laid there, and I came down with the 3. We had a house announcer, and the house announcer announced the winner, new world champion, Wahoo McDaniels, and the building went nuts.
Oh, wow.
Well, then I get up and said, no, his shoulder was up this much, and Flair grabs him by the tights, rolls him up, 1, 2, 3, and fortunately we were in a steel cage, and that kept us from being safe that night. But they tore the building up, and the next day the article in the newspaper was war breaks out at the War Memorial, and they showed all the damage. So I had a lot to do with that, all that damage to that building, But it was memorable because both of them were truly, truly good workers, and those guys used to go 60-minute matches 7 nights a week when they came through the territory, and both of them great performers. And to this day, like I said, Ric Flair is still there, and he's got the same notoriety that he had 20, 30 years ago.
Sure. Well, there you have it, guys. Here we have Bruce, the Ref of Refs, who almost brought down the War Memorial, burned it down and all everything. Yes, Ref of Refs. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're wrapping up this segment here. So we're going to be coming back with a few more questions to Bruce. So stay tuned to The Feud Show!
24/7 Miami Radio.